Now we'll see what is Poisson distribution. So according to us, like Poisson distribution is nothing but for an event that happens randomly, you can do a Poisson distribution. So in order to do a Poisson distribution, the main thing is you need to know the average number of successes. So these are all the following conditions. If these following conditions are satisfied, then you can go ahead with the Poisson distribution. The first condition is the event result in a success or a failure. It can be either a success or else a failure. And the average number of success should be known. The mu is nothing but the mean. You need to know the what is the mean that had occurred in that particular data, and the probability of success and the probability of success. This is not that required. So you need to know the proportion of your success. And if properties is like if mean and variance are equal, and it is actually denoted by mu. So in those sort of situations where your mean and variance are equal, you can apply this particular Poisson distribution. And actually they had given a small example, the average number of houses sold by a company in 5 per day. So they are asking a question, what is the probability that exactly 4 houses will be sold tomorrow? So as an average, every day like 5 houses is getting sold out. So what is the probability that exactly 4 houses, what is the probability? So here if you are looking at, this is the formula to calculate your Poisson distribution. It is not required to know or remember all these formulas, because the tools that you're going to work on can do all this process in second. But as a statistician, if you're getting into analytics, it is at least required to know the basic parts. So in our future algorithms, definitely if I'm teaching the algorithm part how it works, you cannot complete the syllabus. The problem is that the things that I'm teaching right now here, like about hypothesis testing or all this distribution, if you are taking a statistical course, it takes 1 semester to complete all these particular things. So whatever topics that we are covering here, right, the hypothesis testing. So in college syllabus, hypothesis testing is a subject which you will be handling for one entire semester. So those sort of very vague topics, we are trying to manipulate it, we are trying to cut short it in such a way that the business people also understand it very easily. So that's what we're going to do. And if someone is interested in terms of purely max, if you want to calculate all these calculations with your hands, I'll be giving some of the formulas, because these are all the formulas which is not available in our slide. I'll also give you a hint how to solve this. So if you are really interested in solving this by hand, you can do this process. If you feel that it is sufficient for me to do it by machine or by Excel or R or SAS, then it is also great. So that it depends on the people's interest. So I'll show you in both the ways, and whichever is convenient for you, you can just choose that option. So in order to do this Poisson distribution, this is the formula. So if we are looking at what is lambda, so lambda is nothing but what is the probability that you are going to expect. What is the mean number of occurrences in a given interval of time? That's what is represented as by lambda. One thing is you can substitute in terms of formula and you can calculate it. It is also same as binomial distribution. So instead of lambda, you'll substitute the corresponding mean and you have to calculate it individually. And what is the difference between cumulative and point probability? The same thing can be applied here. You can also look for a point probability, or you can also look for a cumulative probability. So both the things can happen easily. So now I'll show you how this can be easily happening in terms of Excel. So here this is the condition that we have. Average number of houses sold by a company is 5. So here the mean would be 5. And what is the probability that exactly 4 houses would be sold? So our X would be 4. If I'm substituting it, I'll get the point probability equal to, there is an option called Poisson. You can select Poisson. What is the X? It is 4, because exactly 4 houses should be sold. And what is the mean? Mean is nothing but 5 houses are sold at an average in the previous histories. And what would be my cumulative? So I want to seek a pointed probability. So I'll just make it as false. Okay. Exactly 4 houses. What is the probability? What is the probability of exactly 4 houses being sold tomorrow? What is the probability here? 17%. Yeah, it is 0.175. In terms of percentage, it can be 17%. And in the same way, what is the probability that less than or equal to 4 houses getting sold? In this particular case, then it should be cumulative. The cumulative should be true. It is 44%. Yeah. Is everyone clear with this process? Because we will not get much into technical. because I had given you the formula, and even if you are substituting in the formula, you will get the same results. Okay, and that's what about Poisson distribution. And next, coming to the topic called confidence interval. So any idea about confidence interval? So take an example of population and a sample. Okay, so if I take I have a complete population and I'm taking a sample out of it, and if I want to mention with 95% accuracy, the process should have 95% accuracy when I am working on sample. What should be the condition that should be met? I have a complete population and I took a subset out of it, and I want the end result with 95% accuracy. So in order to get that 95% accuracy on the analysis, what is the basic criteria that I would consider? How much relationship or how much reference should be there within the population and a sample to do this process to get an accuracy of 95%? An example, consider this is my complete population, okay, and this is actually my 95% confidence limit of my data, and I took a sample, okay, 1 standard deviation and 2 standard deviation, that's fine. That is basically about a normal distribution. I'm talking about now population and a sample, and now I took a sample. Now I should tell, okay, 95% the sample that I took is relating to my population. This is my population. I'll take another color. This is actually my population. This is my sample that I take. So in order to get a process with 95% accuracy, what I would expect, the data that I'm taking from my population, at least 95% should be equal to my population, right? The mean should be as close as possible. Yeah, the mean should be as close as possible, and this 95% limit also should be as close as possible, right? Only with the mean equal I cannot decide. So within this 95% distribution, this 95% distribution and this 95% distribution should be equal. So with if I make a distribution which is 95% confidence, if all my values fall within this 95% category, then I can tell that my sample and populations are 95% equal, right? If both have same distribution. What if my value is falling beyond this limit? Assume that this is 95% limit, okay? This is 95% limit, and the sample that I take, some of the values or most of the values are falling beyond this limit. Now does my sample and population is equal? If some of the values fall beyond this category, beyond this critical region, does my population and sample is equal? I'm going to check with only 95% confidence limit. Yeah, it is actually no, it cannot be equal. That's what right now we are going to discuss about confidence interval, because every time in statistics, okay, Matthew said started differently. Is it true that 1.96 of population is needed and 95% confidence? Yes, actually. So if your z-score is 1.96, if your z-score that you calculate is beyond 1.96, then it is beyond 95% limit. So for an example, this is my population distribution. This is my population, okay, and I'm going to consider the sample that I take. If it is 95%, I am very much satisfied. So to calculate 95% accuracy, what would be my z value I would fix? 1.96, right? So if I calculate a z-score of my sample, and if it goes beyond 1.96, then definitely it will not contain 95% of my data. Then in that case, I have to reject it. So this is actually the critical region. So if the sample values, if it is moving beyond this critical region, then definitely you should reject it. For 95% confidence, this is the limit, and for 95% confidence, this is the limit. This is the z value critical region. So if your value is falling within this range, then you can accept. If it is falling beyond this range, you have to reject it. So it is clear about the z critical values. These are all the critical values. If your sample is like, because sample, how you would find the distribution? So how you try to find whether my population and sample is equal or not? By looking at the distribution only you can find. If both are normally distributed, then if your sample is crossing this limit, then you can tell that they both are not equal. If it is falling within this region, then you can tell, okay, this is equal. and that also depends on the limit that you're fixing. So if you want to do your process with 99% confidence or 99% accuracy, then this would be your threshold. And yeah, I'll just take for 99% confidence, this would be a threshold, and for 95% confidence, this would be a threshold. If your values are moving beyond this limit, then you should not take that particular sample. This is how you would find, okay, my sample is representing my population or not. Okay, clear? Clear, everyone? Because most of the process people would not expect 100% result. So they'll be looking at, okay, at least my sample should represent 95% of my population. So in that case, this would be a threshold, and for 99%, this would be a threshold, and accordingly 90%, this is your threshold of your Z critical values. Clear till this point? Anyway, I'll tell you the calculation part how it is done, but right now just try to understand how you are trying to tell, okay, my sample is representing my population or not. Is that clear with this threshold limit? Is that clear for everyone, or do you have any questions or any queries to ask? Because this is the only topic which would be vague and which will be difficult for you to understand, because these are all the topics we were like learning for an entire year, and those things we are trying to teach you in 1 or 2 days. So if we are crossing this hypothesis testing, then every topics would be easier, and it is actually like very easy to feed to all the participants. But this is purely statistics. It takes time for you to understand, but at least in a theoretical level or at a basic level, you should have an understanding. Okay. Is everyone clear with this limit? If I have a 95% confidence interval, and if my Z value is more than 1.96, definitely I'm not going to take that sample. It should fall within this category. Okay, because usually from the participants we get that only this hypothesis testing, it is difficult for us to understand, because I had handled almost 15 batches in Simplilearn, and whenever all the staffs, all my colleagues take sessions, this is the session that people would find difficult for teaching them, because these are all the things we are learning with practice of stats for 1 year. So teaching with numbers, it becomes a bit tedious. So we'll try to teach in a way that you are understanding at an overall future. And if you're really interested in getting in a deeper way that you need to know each and every calculation part of it, definitely we can also help you out. But in our sessions, it is difficult. So we can also talk in our Simplitalk forum and we can solve these problems. Okay. Right now, just understand in an overall level. Then I'll tell you what is the relation between, because as the class moves on, it is easy for you to understand. So for an example, how you would calculate Z score? What is your X? X is your sample mean. This would be your population mean divided by sigma. Sigma is nothing but your standard deviation by root n. Sigma by root n is your standard deviation. So based on this Z score that is calculated, you can decide whether the population and sample are equal or not. Okay, is it clear about this formula? Because even in our previous slides we had calculated Z score. Or I'll just tell you in terms of a notepad. I'll tell you the key points which is to be noted in all these sections. What is generally hypothesis testing? Yeah, as Matthew or Akansha said, this is just an assumption. So in our assumption, what we do is just there are two ways you can define your hypothesis testing. One is your null hypothesis. Just keep these points in mind. This is the same process we are going to look at for all these statistical concepts. We are going to calculate in different ways, but the formulas are different, but the procedure is same. So in null hypothesis, what I'm stating is you can define in many ways. So one thing is I have a population and I have sample. I assume that in my null hypothesis, both the distributions mean are equal. Both the distributions are equal. This is my null hypothesis. What would be my alternate hypothesis? One assumption I made is like I assume that my population and sample are equal, and my sample is able to represent my population. That's what I had figured out in my null hypothesis. And what would be my alternate hypothesis? So one thing I'm telling is equal, and what could be the alternate way? It is not equal. My population and sample means are not equal, right? This is the two conditions. Either it can be equal or it cannot be equal. So this is what we are going to see in our hypothesis testing. So using our hypothesis testing, at last we would derive at a value called p-value. So for an example, I am going to do this process at 95% confidence interval. Okay, I'm going to do this particular process with 95% confidence limit. Okay, so if I'm doing this process with 95% confidence limit, what is the error term which is acceptable? I want the result with 95% accuracy. So what is the negligible error that I can consider in my process? You're talking about Z-score, Vishal Anand. I am asking about in terms of percentage. What is the negligible percentage error that you can consider? If it is 95%, then definitely if your process has 5% of your error, it is acceptable, right? And this in terms of proportion, if you're telling, there is a term called alpha. This is your alpha value. This is the critical point that you're going to fix. So it is acceptable till 0.05. So 5 divided by 100 is 0.05. This is the error term which is acceptable. If it is beyond this limit, then you are definitely going to reject or you are going to accept your null hypothesis. This is actually called p-value. So with all this hypothesis testing, we'll derive at an end result called p-value. There are different ways of calculating your p-value. So one is like you can calculate using z-test, t-test, chi-squared or ANOVA. There are different hypothesis testing. I'll tell you about different hypothesis testing. Before that, I'll tell you how to interpret the result and what is the end point that you're going to derive out of this. So there is something called p-value. So which tells you the significance level. Significance level of your process, of your hypothesis testing. So the general condition is, if your p-value for 95% confidence limit, if it is less than 0.05, then what you're going to do is you're going to reject your null hypothesis. Reject your, because this topic is a bit vague to understand. So just keep all these points in mind, then it becomes easier for you to relate with the original process. Reject your null hypothesis. So what is a null hypothesis? Both the value, what is alpha? So alpha is nothing but the significance level that you are defining. So you have an acceptance range of 5% error. If it is going beyond that particular limit, then you cannot take this particular value, right? For an example, if my p-value is greater than 0.05, which is more than your acceptable error term. So in that case, what you will do, you will tell that your population and sample means are not equal, right? Because your acceptance level is only less than 0.005. Within this limit, you can accept the error. If it is more than this particular limit, then definitely you are going to reject this process. So if you are rejecting your null hypothesis, this is nothing but your population and sample. You are going to reject this process. If your p-value is greater than 0.05, then you are going to accept null hypothesis. Clear? Clear, everyone? What is your null hypothesis? My both population and sample are equal. If it is less than 0.05, less than 0.05 is, so if you are looking at a distribution for 95% confidence limit, yes, as Sandhya said, if I am rejecting my null hypothesis, then I have to accept my alternate hypothesis. Okay, clear? There are only two conditions. Either you have to accept or reject. If you're rejecting, then you would go with an alternate hypothesis. So for an example, consider this is 0.05. Okay. If it is less than 0.05, what you will do? If it is falling in this category, less than 0.5, this is 0.05, this could be 0.04, 0.002, 0.001. So if my values are falling in this category, this is actually for 95% confidence limit, what is your threshold? 0.05, right? For 95% confidence, this is my critical region. So if my values are falling beyond this region, which is less than 0.05, because if you're looking at this region, this is less than 0.05. In case if my values are falling in this region, what I'm going to do? I'm going to reject my null hypothesis. What is my null hypothesis? I'm not able to view this. I'll create and annotate again. For 95% confidence limit, this is my alpha value 0.05. Okay, and if my value is less than 0.05, I'm going to reject it because I find that my values are beyond this limit. Only if my value, if it is within this limit, I can tell that 95% confidence, I can tell all my values are here. If it is beyond this limit, then what I'm going to do? I am rejecting my null hypothesis. Rejecting a null hypothesis stating that my distributions are not equal, right? I'm rejecting it. Clear, everyone? If it is falling beyond this limit, you are going to reject. If it is falling in this limit, then you are going to accept it. One is you're going to accept or you're going to reject. When you will reject it, if it falls beyond this limit, which is less than 0.05, you would reject it. If it is falling in this region, then you can accept it. Okay, how many you are confused? Yeah, I knew generally people will get confused for this particular topic. Again, I'll explain. So you are clear about null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Is that clear? What is null hypothesis? What is your null hypothesis? Yes. So we have to begin with two statements. One is your null hypothesis and one is your alternate hypothesis. Okay, take a real-time example. So for an example, I assume that I am just taking a survey of people who is drinking coffee. So there are many people who would consume coffee, right? I am assuming that all the entire people, initially before my assumption, I am taking a survey to all the people in all the localities. Say in India, I am taking all the people survey, and I found that the number of coffee cups that is consumed by a person is actually in a week. In a week is, I assume that it is 21. Okay, when I am taking a population, so my population, I'll just close this. I'll take a small example. I'll try to put this in an easier way. Okay. So here what I'm going to consider is I am going to take a survey. So average number of people consuming coffee. I took a survey of all the people in India. So this is actually a big data. This is a big population. Here I found that in a week people are consuming 21 cups. Okay, 21 cups people are consuming, and this I got from my population. This is my population mean. Okay, clear? And now what I'm going to do is, but still I have a doubt. So is that equal or not? Then what I did is I just went to a some small sample of people. Then I took a particular survey. Okay, then I took a survey to a sample people. There I figured out this particular sample is having a mean of 20 cups. People are generally telling that I have a habit of having 20 cups of coffee in a week. Okay, this is from a sample. And while taking a sample, what would be my standard deviation? So standard deviation would be I find that people are consuming different rates, because every people will not consume 20 cups. Some people would consider 14 cups, 15 cups, 16 cups, and 17. So in order to get that, I am just finding the standard deviation. So what is the standard deviation for them? Okay. So normally if I do a standard deviation, I find that there are 5 cups per week. There is a difference of 5 cups. Okay, either plus 5 or minus 5. Within this range, all these values are falling. So this is the condition that I am going to take. Now I am going to check whether my population and my sample is equal or not with 95% confidence limit. Okay, I am going to consider 95% confidence limit. For 95% confidence limit, what is the threshold that I should fix? What is my alpha? For 95% confidence, if I do this process, there can be 5% error. What is the alpha that I can suggest? I am not asking about the z-score. I am asking about the alpha value. What would be my alpha value? Which is 0.05. Okay, 5%, which is 0.05. Okay. If my value is falling in this category or not, let me check. So I'll just calculate the z-score first. So the formula of z-score is x bar minus mu by sigma by root n. So I can show you the formula here. X bar minus mu by sigma by root n. So what is x here? What is my x? X is nothing but my sample mean. What is my sample mean here? 20 is my sample mean. Okay, x is my 20. And what is my population mean that I had taken, which is 21. Okay, and I'll just divide it. What is the standard deviation that I had figured? There is a deviation of 5 curves with all the people, divided by what is the sample size that I am taking. I am taking the survey for, assume that I am taking the survey for 100 people. Okay, I am taking this particular survey for 100 people. I am going to make a square root of it. So there is not an option here. So just assume that this is square root of 100. What is the square root of 100? I am going to take 100 people survey. Okay. So what is the square root of 100? This would be 10. Yeah. I am taking 10. And if you are solving this, what is the value that you get in a calculator? You would get a value of -2, right? You get a value of -2. Is it +2 or -2? You will get definitely -2, right? Okay, this is the -2. And according to us, now we'll just check what would be the p-value. There are certain calculators which is readily available to tell your p-value. Before that, I'll also tell you how to understand and how to define this particular process. I think it is getting deviated. Fine. Okay. So what I'll do is, this is my distribution. So with a 95% confidence limit, what I should tell is, if I want to accept this, what is the null hypothesis here? What is the null hypothesis that I can state here in this particular problem? My population and sample are equal, right? Before that, I'll also state the null and hypothesis here. Okay. What is the null hypothesis here in our problem? What is the null hypothesis that we'll be stating here? Can someone tell me? Equal. So my population and sample are equal. And what would be my alternate? Population and sample are different. These are all the two scenarios. Either I can do this or that. So when you will decide to reject your null hypothesis? When you will reject? When you will reject your null hypothesis? If it is less than 5%, that is actually if your p value, if it is less than 0.05, you're going to reject your null hypothesis. How we are stating you're going to reject it? So, and if your p value is greater than 0.05, you're going to accept it. Now let us check whether we are going to reject this or accept this based on the z-score. Okay. Now we know our z-score is -2, and there are certain calculators, because you have a z table separately. During colleges or school, you would have a logarithmic table, right? You would find a log using the log table. So instead of that, there are certain calculators to calculate the p-value based on z. I'll just open that calculator and they'll do this process. That is much easier. Okay, there are certain calculators which is available. And what is the z-score? What is the z-score we had calculated? Which is -2, right? And with what significance level? With 95% confidence we are going to do it. So it is 0.05. If we are doing with 99% confidence limit, then your alpha would be 0.01, because there only 1% of error can be acceptable. And the same thing if you want to do the same process with 90% confidence limit, and this would be your alpha value. So alpha value depends on what is the confidence limit that you want, and I'm just calculating it. So what does it tell? My p value is 0.02, right? What is my p-value I got? This is the value that I got. So I'll just try to plot this in terms of a graph. This is my distribution, and what is my threshold for 95% confidence limit? 0.05. If some values are less than 0.05, so where this particular p-value falls, 0.022, before this or after this? Where does my p-value falls? Before this critical or after this critical? After this. So it can fall in this region. So if it falls in this region, what should I do? Because this is my acceptance level, and if it falls beyond that, what I am telling? They are not equal. That's what I am going to tell, right? So I am rejecting my null hypothesis. If it falls beyond this limit, I am going to reject my null hypothesis. What is my null hypothesis? In null hypothesis, I had stated both my population and sample are equal. That statement, because it is falling beyond this limit, I am going to reject this. If I reject this, then what I tell? Population and sample are different. So in this case, my assumption is wrong. So in this case, the sample that I took with the 21 mean is actually wrong. So I have to take another sample which is representing the proper population. Okay. Yes, that's the conclusion. So as Vishal said, so sample is not representing my population. Clear? This is how all this distribution works. That's why we should make our data into a normal distributed way. Is everyone clear with this process? So make sure that you understand the p-values in a proper way. Okay. Other than mean of population and sample being equal or not, what will you have null hypothesis statement? There are different statements, but null hypothesis generally, if you are, that depends on the test that you are going to do. If it is z-test or t-test or ANOVA, there are different tests. So this is nothing but it is not only applicable for population and a sample. For an example, if I take two variables, I have two variables where I have to see whether these two variables mean are equal or not. Okay. In those cases, I can do the same process. So it is not only meant for population and sample. Within this population also you can do it. For an example, I'll tell. Okay, now we are talked about population and sample. What if there are two variables? I have two variables. I have to check whether these two variables are equal or not. In that case, what would be my null hypothesis is? The two variables are equal. Two variables that I'm going to consider as equal. And in the same way, in alternate, you will define these two variables are not equal. In the same way, you can do the same process for a different combination. So one thing is like within population and sample you can do, or between two samples. For an example, if you think that my two samples are equal or not, I want to check whether the distributions of two samples are equal or not. Then in that statement, what would be your null hypothesis? Instead of population and sample, I am taking two variables or two samples. Then what would be my null hypothesis here? Because the same process can be done at different levels. One is within population and sample you can do, or between samples you can do, or between two variables you can do it. Clear? If I take two samples, what would be my null hypothesis? I have to check whether the two samples are equal or not. In that case, what would be my null hypothesis that I'm going to state? What should I state there? Hypothesis testing is nothing but you can do for all the combination. You can either do it for two variables, or you can do it for a population and a sample, or you can do it for two samples. In all the combination you can do. But the general null hypothesis that you would state is both the things are equal, and alternate is both the things are not equal. That's the statement that you would define. Clear? This is how you are trying to relate those variables. Okay, Sandhya, you have doubt. What is your doubt? Okay, what is the two variables that you are comparing? Okay, fine. For an example, there are 100 variables in my data set. Okay, I am going to see. I'm just going to implicate a drug. Okay, a cancer patient is coming into hospital, and he's affected with cancer. So before treatment, what is his cancer cell size? And after treatment, what is his cancer cell size? These are all the two factors. Okay, one is before giving a medication, I am taking his record. After giving medication, I'm taking his record. So if these two variables are equal or not, if I have a doubt, okay, before a treatment and after a treatment, my values are equal or not, whether these two distributions are equal or not, I can do the same hypothesis testing. So these are all two variables I can take. I can check their distribution, whether I can compare them, I can tell whether they both are equal or they're different. So if they are different, what I can tell, okay, the medication that I had prescribed has definitely had some work on it. So it had some impact so that the values are different. That is the conclusion that I can make, right? Clear, Sandhya? You can do the same process with variable to variable, or you can do the same process with population and sample the same way. We have a population, and if I want to compare with another sample, I can do it. Or if I have 100 samples, in that I have to compare values between one sample and the other sample, whether they are equal or not. I can do it. The same process I can do for different combinations. But for every cases, the null hypothesis would be the two things that I'm going to take is equal. Alternate would be the two things that I'm going to take is not equal. And how you would decide which hypothesis to take, that comes from your p-value. Okay, clear? Clear, Sandhya? And clear, everyone? Still you have any doubts? Because this is the p-value concept which we are going to look in all our analysis. So if your p-value is less than 0.05 for 95% accuracy, then you can reject your null hypothesis. So this is the one thing that you should keep in your mind. If my p-value is less than 0.05, I am going to reject my null hypothesis. Okay? And this differs for different process. I'll tell you how this process happened for different methodologies. Till this point, is everyone clear? What is P? As I told you earlier, P is actually a significant value which would tell you whether to accept your hypothesis or reject your hypothesis. This is actually a parameter that people would consider, P value. Okay? Fine. Is everyone clear? And in the same thing, okay, for an example, I have to do a hypothesis testing with 99% confidence. Okay, 99% confidence. What is the alpha value that I should fix here? If I have to get the result, it is actually simple. Yeah, as Vishal said, it is 0.01. So what should be your p-value here in this case? If your p-value is less than 0.01, then you are going to reject your null hypothesis. If not, you are going to accept it. In this case, if it is less than 0.05, you have to reject null hypothesis. Okay, clear? Clear, everyone? It depends on the accuracy that you want. But if you are looking at general statistical method, most of the people or most of the scientists, everyone would have a normal confidence limit of 95%. So people will not change their threshold. Most of the people in their analysis will have a threshold of 95%. If they get the result with 95% confidence, that is more than sufficient. That's actually like a universal threshold that most of the people would follow. It is better in all our analysis, we will also choose 95% confidence limit. Okay? Clear, everyone? Still any doubts? Okay, should null hypothesis statement be positive statement? Yeah, those things are something which has equality. So whatever functions that you do, like the two variables are equal, those sort of statements you have to define in a null hypothesis. And when coming into an alternate, you can have different combinations. So in alternate hypothesis, initially what we had fixed our alternate hypothesis. What was our alternate hypothesis? Okay, we can use confidence level less than 90%. You can use it, but definitely your alpha value also changes. But universally, even if you're going to a client side or generally all the statisticians will have a confidence limit of 95%. That is actually an accepted value that people use across the globe. And if you want to change the parameter, you can change it. Yeah, that depends on. Okay. So one question that I had asked is, what is our alternate hypothesis initially that we had stated? It is not equals. Yeah. So both say population and sample are not equal. This is different. Okay. In another way, you can tell that my population mean is less than sample, or my population mean is greater than sample. Even this also can be applied, right? Because anyway it is different. If it is not equal, even if it is greater or less than, anyway it is also going to be different. There can be three situations. Your population is not equal, it can be less than, or it can be greater than. It can fall in any of these categories. For all these three things, you can do a hypothesis testing. That's what people would tell: one tail test and two tail test. For an example, I'll give a business case study about one tail test and two tail test. So for an example, generally we would consider two tail test. In most of the analysis that we do, we'll consider both the tails and we'll fix a parameter of 0.05. But in some of the business cases, for an example, I'll tell you in this particular situation what we consider is the population mean and the sample mean that I took is different. That's what the condition that I took. In another way, I can take my population mean is less than my sample mean, or population is greater than my sample mean. There I can do a one tail test or a two tail test. So I'll tell you a good example where you can apply two tail test. Okay. For an example, I'm working in a sugar manufacturing industry. So I'm just manufacturing sugar packets which holds 100 grams. Okay. So whenever I manufacture, I'm just putting 100 grams of sugar in a packet. In this situation, for an example, I always our people have a mentality that if it is more than 100, they will accept it. But what if while you are waiting, if it is less than 100 grams, what if it is 98 grams or 99 grams? Then definitely your company would end up in a problem. So if it is more than 100 or 101 or 102, people would accept it. They'll be very happy in accepting free things. So I fix a parameter that I should see, okay, all my packets that I manufacture should be more than 100 grams. Okay, with 95% confidence. That I'm telling that whatever package that I take, if it is 95% of the packet should be more than 100 grams. If that is the case, then okay, I can accept. So in that particular case, you are considering only one tail, right? I am just considering a tail which is more than 100. So that is the only one condition that I take. So in that case, I can go for a one tail test. Okay, because I'm not going to consider two of my tails. I'm going to consider only one of my tails. So this is 100 gram. Okay, and this is 101 gram, and this is 99. And what I want to do is 95% of the time my data should fall between 900 to 101. If that is the case, I'm going to accept it. If that is not the case, I'm going to reject it. So this is 100. So I have to find, I don't know why it is closing, it is not working properly. I'll use a paint. Okay. In this case, all my data points should fall within 95% of this category, 100 to 101. So in this case, I can do a one tail test because I'm just considering only one of my tail. What if I'm concerned about both my tails? So I want to know my value should fall between both the tails. Let's say 95% of the data should fall between 99 grams and 101 grams. If it is beyond this limit, then I'm going to reject it. If it is within this limit, I'm going to accept it. This is actually two tail test because I'm considering both the tails. So that's the difference between one tail test and two tail test. So if you're doing a one tail test, your z value is different, and if you do a two tail test, your z values will be different. So I'll show you what is the threshold that they're fixing for one tailed and two tail test. Okay. So this is the parameter that people would fix. If we are doing a one tail test, your critical region is, these are the limits. If your z value is crossing this critical limit, then you're going to reject it. Okay. Clear? And if you're going to do a two tail test, this is the threshold that you have to fix. For 0.05, 1.96 is the z value. If it is beyond that, you are going to reject your null hypothesis. Okay. Clear, everyone? Is it clear for everyone? Because I knew this is actually a vague topic that it is difficult for people who is not from a mathematical or a statistical background to understand. But if you are able to interpret the result, that is more than sufficient to cope up with all these practices. Okay.